Thank you all so much for coming out tonight to join us for our last parent webinar for the school year, but don't worry, we will definitely have more in the fall. Also, we would love to hear of any suggestions or topics you guys would like to hear. Feel free to email those to us. Some simple etiquette I'd like to discuss before we get started. We ask that you keep yourself muted during the presentation. And please feel free to utilize the chat with any of those questions that just can't wait. I understand they pop up and sometimes you have to hop off. So please feel free to drop those in the chat. And we do ask that any personal questions can either be emailed to myself or just wait until the end to hang out, and I can probably hang out with you and answer them in real time. It's just we try not to do those in the public forum. All right, so let's get started with our parent stress management webinar. So let's discuss burnout, that fun word we hear all of the time. And I think we can all agree parenting is incredibly rewarding, but also incredibly exhausting. So sorry, hopped ahead. Now, what burnout actually is? That is, the burnout that comes from emotional exhaustion of managing everyone's lives. As parents, it's our job to keep the schedule, be the doctor, be the note taker, be all of that fun stuff. And it just doesn't end sometimes. And that can really, really start to weigh on us. And then we get into that compassion fatigue that, you're caring for someone else all of the time, and then you have nothing left for yourself. And then you have that reduced sense of accomplishment, like nothing you do is good enough. And then the signs and symptoms of those emotions you'll feel during those stages of burnout. The emotional signs, the feeling of irritability, overwhelmed, everything's just getting on, your last nerve. You quite can't manage. And then you get that increased anxiety all the time. And then you just don't have it in you to do anything else. That's where that withdrawal comes. And then you get that mom brain fog, as I personally like to call it, where I swear I had more brain cells before my kids, and I just don't know where the thoughts go anymore. I think I lose one each time they say mom, but that's just my theory on where they go. And then there's the stages of parent burnout. So discussing this will allow us to be more informed so we can know our own warning signs of when that burnout is starting to creep up on us. Because sometimes we're hitting it 100 all day and then it just hits us like a wall. So knowing those signs and symptoms of the burnout will be extremely beneficial to trying to put those safeguards in to help ourselves not hit that burnout as hard as we do. So the mild stage, that is that short term, and it's more of situational stressors. That's where you need a minute before someone says mom one more time, but you're still able to get through the day. Now the moderate one, that's where stress starts to build. Let's add financial stressors or navigating, let's say waiver funding or IEPs. That's those mental stressors requiring a lot of prompts and just things that build and you start to feel overwhelmed. And then there is the severe stage. At this stage, you're getting hit from all angles. Every day starts to feel a little too uphill, and those day-to-day tasks like showering and making dinner truly feel like the last thing that you can physically do. And then all of this obviously will start to take an effect on our physical health. That's the chronic fatigue. And the last thing we need during all this stress is lack of sleep, but that's where you hit those sleep disturbances, frequent headaches, all of those. And then we get all of this fatigue and burnout from our compassion fatigue. This is categorized as the gradual depletion that comes from giving too much of yourself to others. With parents, it's a no-brainer that that's going to happen because we are the main caregivers. So what we should be feeling, or which we do feel some of the time, because I feel like it's that back and forth. In 1 second, you're feeling the compassion, satisfaction. which is that feeling you get from helping others. It's that warm sense of, you help someone, you're doing great. Whereas compassion fatigue, we just went over, but that's that you got nothing else to give. It's all you have. Now, that's nice. We're throwing out a lot of labels on things, but let's see how this cycle of fatigue affects us as parents. So I enjoy a good visual, so I figured you guys would as well. The wheel explores all different phases that we experience on our road to compassion fatigue, starting with our zealot. We're eager, we're happy to make a difference, we're happy to be that caregiver for someone, but the constant giving and giving and giving does take from us if we don't have those moments for reprieve or we don't have those moments to step back and just, I think all parents can relate to those 5 minutes before you get in the house where you're just like, wait in the car or out front and just take a minute of me time. And that's where we start to see that irritability, the lower frustration tolerance, the snapping over small things, crying over that cup of spilt milk, those things that just didn't irritate you yesterday are just starting to get there. And of course, with that, you start to withdraw. You just don't have it in you to be with others. And then you go into this sense of autopilot where you're getting through the day, but that's it. It's not as fulfilling as it used to be. And that leads us to the renewal or the pathology. And that's where we will either see people burn out and it's just they don't know what else to do, or they start to take those steps to try and find releases to be able to manage the hardship that is parenting. And then compassion fatigue symptoms are similar to those others. That's just canceling plans, the social withdrawal, the trouble focusing, the brain fog. You'll see a lot of common themes in the symptoms across the board of fatigue, burnout, all of those things. And the next topic we are going to discuss in reference to managing stress is secondary traumatic stress. Oh, so sorry. Bear with me. Another technological differences. There we go. And secondary traumatic stress, it can look like absorbing your child's anxieties, fears, or big emotions, hearing about difficult experiences, bullying, loss. And then what that feels like is that heaviness that you get. It's that increased worry or protectiveness, the trouble like shaking it off. These are those things that you get from the secondary traumatic stress. It's the emotional impact that stays with you the longest. And now the risk factors of all of these fun things I just threw at you in a very short amount of time, basically just outlining all the things we already know as parents. Each day we're tired. Uh, we don't know how we got to the end of the day, but we got there. So why are we at such high risk for all of these things? Well, one, it's the high emotional investment. We love our kids. They're cute, they're great, and that's what we tell ourselves on those hard days. They're really cute and they're really great. But then there's the chronic unpredictability of stress. That's the making the meals every day, trying to figure out how Timmy's going to get to soccer while you also have a back to school night meeting for your other child. And then there's that no off switch. Even when you can relax and have that moment, your brain's still going. It doesn't stop. I'm right there with you. I'm a mom of three. There's always someone's got something to do somewhere at some time in the upcoming future. And the invisible mental load that we have with that of the constant planning and the pressure to always be good. Isn't that a fun one? We're always trying to be perfect for everyone else. We're trying to be patient, calming, nurturing. And we need to try and remember to also be that on ourselves during these times. And we'll touch on that a little bit later. And then just obviously this one we've heard from all parents in all aspects, but it's especially true for those who children have neuro differences or different abilities. It's the reduced access to supports. That's the social isolation, trying to figure out childcare, feeling like you should have a handle on it on your own. All of those things that just really kick you right when you need it to with parenting. And I know so far this presentation is like, why did I sign up? This is the most bumming thing they've ever presented. Don't worry, it gets better. I promise. Stay with me. But some key differences I want to talk about where we need to know exactly what degree of help we need to ask for is when we're in that stressed versus overwhelmed state. So stress, I can handle it. You're getting by, but barely. Um, and then the overwhelmed is I can't handle this. I can't do it anymore. I need that additional help. Or the active fight or flight versus the shutting down, where your thinking starts to get impaired is where you're more in that overwhelmed category. And lastly, the signal capacity has already begun to exceed, meaning you are past your bandwidth. You have given everything you can, and you don't have enough left. Well, you do. You gave it all. So all of that being said, knowing that the stress versus overwhelmed factors we're going to be viewing. And now let's look at the self-compassion and self-care. So like I said earlier, when we are having those intense moments of parenting where you're in the moment, someone's freaking out, you don't know what you're going to do. That's those moments where I want you to really, really, easier said than done, be patient with yourself because you're also learning. I know that's the silliest thing to say, but if any of you got a parenting handbook, I would love for you to send me the link because I have not seen in the book where that's covered, but it's just trying to be kind to yourself, that self-compassion, the same way you would want your child treated in their stressful moments, you should try and treat yourself like that in yours. Now, I understand that's kind of hard when someone's screaming or behavior's happening, and that sometimes you have to do that after the fact. Just have that pep talk with yourself of, you did your best, you did everything you could, and you did a really good job, and you're proud of you. I know these are very silly things we say to ourselves, these self-affirmations, but they are effective. Because once you start to change that narrative in your head of you're not doing enough, it does help where you start to see that you are doing enough. So, some basics of self-care. Obviously, personal connections, that's those friends, those families members. And even if they don't get exactly what you're going through, it's still good to just release that. And even if we aren't able to release that with another person, we do live in the beautiful age of technology. They have apps for everything. I don't know if you new app where they want us to care for something else that's a finch or something to keep it alive, to help everyone get their goals done or something. I don't need another thing. But there are other apps such as guided meditation, mindfulness apps, and apps for journaling, which I feel like is always a very productive way to get out those feelings when you don't feel like anyone else will understand them or you'll have anyone there for them. Because a lot of these moments where we are at our wits' end are during very heightened moments. So it's not like we can just be like, 1 second, let me go journal. No. So sometimes we have to do self-care in hindsight. Obviously, what everyone tells us, exercising. Every time I try and do that, I have 3 kids trying to hang out with me at that exact moment. So that's always fun. But exercise is one of the benefits you should attempt to, even if it's just a family walk or you take a walk around the block by yourself, just those moments in the day where you can niche out a little time just for you, even if it's just reflective, 5 minutes, just trying to find those small corners. And then rest and sleep. Great when we can get it, but like I said, I have 2 under 3, so that's not always a realistic thing. But even when I can't sleep, I do try and get those moments of rest where I just let my body be in the moment and not try and think about what's next or try and get up and do the laundry, wash the bottles, all of those. Just giving yourself those 2 minutes of peace that you more than deserve. And then nourishment. Ask yourself right now, how many of us drank enough water today? I'm 100% sure I did not. But it is one of the things that does help flush out our body, helps with our stress. And then hobbies and fun and creative ways to try and de-stress. Adult coloring books are very big now. I've found them to be very rewarding just to get your mind in that state of flow to separate itself from what it's currently going through is very beneficial for your recovery and just stepping back from all of those big feelings that you yourself are experiencing as a parent. And then some coping strategies. And then some quick grounding techniques. I'm sure we've all heard fun grounding techniques such as the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, where you see 5 things, hear 4. Those I can never remember, so that one's never good for me. But breathing exercises, a lot of our phones come with those apps that allow you to breathe the full circle and breathe it back for those guided meditation. What I have always found very helpful for me, whether it's here at school or at home when there's a lot of high energy situations, is just giving myself time in that moment to understand that that moment is just for now. It's a form of mindfulness meditation where we just take it and we hold it that this moment is not forever. This moment is just for now. And it helps reframe your brain to not try and carry that stress with you once that moment is over. I know all of this sounds much easier said than done, but I do think small steps lead to big changes. So if we are putting the time in ourselves, even if it's those 5 minutes, we will see the benefits, even if they are much smaller than we would like. They are steps to bettering ourselves and for that self-improvement of just being kinder to ourselves during that burnout and that fatigue and the stress of parenthood. And then how to hype yourself up. Like I said, journaling is a great technique. When I personally journal, I'd like to talk to myself the same way I would my best friend if she was going through a situation similar to my own, because 9 out of 10 times we are much nicer to others when they are in a hard time than we are with ourselves. So we want to try and have that compassion when talking to ourselves, especially in those high energy moments, the ones where you feel like you didn't do enough, just knowing, tell yourself you did, because deep down you did. And then when it all gets too big, when you are just, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I feel like as parents, we've all had those moments where you're crying and you're like, this is it. I just can't do this anymore. That seems like a universal parent experience. And when you don't feel like you have someone in your can call and convey that to, there is the parent stress listed, the number here. Another resource is to ask your provider or your child's provider for any parent support groups. And then your local resources, libraries. Facebook has a group for everything under the sun. So I'm sure if you look up your area, they will have local groups. And then contacting your local school districts for parent resources in your area. Obviously, you can contact us at the Vanguard School. We are more than happy to give you any resources or connections we have. We weren't able to put them all in here just because so many people are coming from so many areas tonight. And then, so sorry, went back too far. And then that brings us to the end of our presentation where we will be opening it up to questions. Does anyone have any they would like to share in the group chat or anything like that? And I did just want to apologize again for those technical difficulties at the beginning. I am so sorry about that, but fret not because it is being recorded. And if you did miss anything, it will be sent out. So you'll be able to view it at your leisure. So like I mentioned before, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to unmute, hop in the chat, anything at all. I'm more than happy to help. All right. So it does not look like we have any more. Oh. Oh, okay. Now they're done. Thank you guys. I was about to be like, I'll hop off then, but here we are jumping in. All right. So our first question is, hi, thank you for presenting. You are more than welcome, always happy. And how to deal with teenagers talking back. So some personal story time. I have a adopted 12-year-old at home, and we are currently in the thick of everything is talking back. It is my favorite moment in parenthood. I can't say that I'm an expert by any means, but I do give her the space to have that moment to feel her feelings and get that frustration out with her little sass back. And then, similar to other situations, I like to pull back, and after the moment, after things are cool, I know it's hard because we would like to go right back in with our own sass, but just expressing, like, hey, I don't talk to you like that. Please don't speak to me like that. Like, this is a mutual thing. And just explaining that after the fact is the best way I find it. Because in those moments of it, no one's listening to each other. So my suggestion is just to step back and have those talks in hindsight. But that's just me. And then someone asked, I'm not on Facebook. Are there any other groups? Feel free to email me. I'm going to drop my email in the chat, and I will be more than happy to check out things in your area for you and report back on a more concrete list. So I'll drop that in, and please feel free to shoot me an email. And then our next one related, how do we deal with teenagers refusing to do school assignments when they don't think they are important? This is a big one I have seen in my personal life as well. I don't understand it because I don't think we thought, homework or assignments were optional when we were younger, but that seems to be a common theme nowadays. And I just explain to them just in an age appropriate way. I don't get to just not do stuff at work because that's not how life works for me. I would love to not do some of the aspects of my job, but sadly we have to. And your schoolwork is also one of those things that we have to do. If it's something you feel uncomfortable doing by yourself, I'm more than happy to work with you, but it is something that needs to get done. So maybe we can work together to come up with a plan. It's just kind of taking that responsibility just off them and offering that partnership in helping get the task done that sometimes takes the weight off of it for them. And then our next question is, what kind of nutritious food to a vegetarian? Now, I do apologize. I am not well versed on nutrition and I'm not a nutritionist, so I would not talk on that. But like I said, feel free to email me and I'm happy to help you get in contact with someone who might be. And then happy to help. Did anyone have any? No questions are dumb. Guys, I am here to help with all of them. And then, oh, that is a very good one. Our next question, and sorry if I missed any in the mix up of things, feel free to drop it in if I missed it. But our next one is, how do we get our teenagers to try to do things for themselves before asking for help from others? That is a really, really great question of getting them that independence, but also giving them the space to do it, I guess, and all of that before asking for help from us. So Like I said, personal experience with my 12-year-old who is neurospicy in her own fun way, which I feel like adds a little bit to it. So I will give her a task to do and I'll say, hey, I'm around, but I'd love to see you do it by yourself first. And I do give that praise, like, oh my God, you did so good. Look how good you're doing. Sorry, someone just said they like my term neurospicy, and it's the one I use all the time. And that just caught me off guard. Sorry for laughing. But just giving that praise when they do it right. Now, they are going to ask for help, obviously, 5 million times, and we'll get the bruh as they're asking for the help. But just reminding them, setting that soft, because we're parents, all of our boundaries are pretty soft. Our soft boundary of, hey, I'd really like to see if this is something you can do, but I'm here to help you. And just giving those praise points when they do reach the outcomes you kind of mentally set for them yourselves. I hope that answered the question. I hope that helped. And I'm loving all the questions. If anyone has any more, feel free to keep them coming, or feel free, if you don't want to do it in a public forum, just to shoot me an email. I'm always happy to give my spin on things from my unique corner of the world. Ah, yes, I also. The question is, my teenager has a limited diet that's not too healthy. Any suggestions for getting a teenager to try new foods? So I, in our household, our number one savior for people meeting their vitamin needs are the foods that don't look like the thing. We're going to use the age-old parenting technique of deception. And Goodles is our number one seller at our house. They are good for you noodles that have protein and vegetables, and that's how we sneak them in because mac and cheese seems to be a number one hit with most people. And it's just finding those foods. Now, if you do a little research, you can find them. But like I said, not a nutritionist, but please feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to kind of see if I can help you on a more personal basis. But those foods that have the other things. Another fun one I've been using is those frozen fruits that are covered in sour candy. And that's how I've been trying to introduce more fruit to my neurospicy adolescent in the house because fruit is a no-go with veggies. So any way I can try and get those in, I do. So my answer is deception. You're welcome. Any other questions? I always like to give it a minute in case someone's typing. I don't want to cut them off like mid-type. Um, I'm going to assume no one has any more questions then. Oh. Thank you. Okay, our next question. I love it. Any suggestions of how to not take on the stress of our teens, i.e., peer struggles? Once again, personal one I'm just going to pitch to you that I had the other day. 12-year-old was not loving any of us in the house, was not really being the kindest, being the sweetest, being, those little angels that we loved when they were younger, just really being, you know. And I just waited. I always like to not do it in a public setting, just one on one, because no one ever wants to be felt like there's a character flaw in front of others. And we're all just learning, like I said. I like to pull her aside and just talk about, like, hey, what's going on? Because the way you're projecting your feelings isn't conducive to our whole house. And yes, she does get very annoyed that I talk to her like a therapist, for lack of a better word, even though I am not. She does get annoyed, but I do find taking the emotion out of the situation when we're having those conversations does help de-escalate it significantly. But just explaining to her, like, the way you act has an effect on all, similar to the way your friends are acting has an effect on you. Like, I'm here to support you. I'm here to talk about it. I'm here to help you get the skills you need, but I cannot be your punching bag all of the time. And I feel like that really resonates because it shows them that what they're doing consequences do have actions, and they don't just get a free pass to kind of take out their feelings on the world. And we also do discuss healthy techniques, such as those coloring book pages, like I mentioned, and going on family walks or just one-on-one walks. Just finding those things that help you detach from those big emotions you are feeling. I hope that covered it. And then, any more questions, friends? Like I said, more than happy. We still have some time. Alrighty, if no one has anything, oh, I do it every time. And I appreciate this comment we just got. It's not easy speaking in meetings about teens on the spectrum and children on the spectrum because everyone is so different. And that is very true. That's why I only give the suggestion of here's some things I have seen success with. And obviously, if we're not seeing success in what we're doing, we can reach out to those other resources we mentioned and just look at getting more tools in our tool belt to be successful in those moments where we are burnt out or our child is starting to feel burnt out, and just making sure we're navigating the care we're giving to their needs. So, like I said, that's those groups, and please feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to help you find groups or support in your area on your very specific child and their social emotional needs. And then, with all of that being, if no one has any more questions tonight, it has been lovely speaking with all of you, and I would love to hear from more of you via email or however you choose. And please join us again in the fall for our next parent webinars. We do various topics. If there's a topic you would love to see us discuss, please, please, please feel free to email it to us. And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you all so much for coming out.